This time on the Eurostep. Whiteside sitting courtside? Houston, we have a problem. And LeBron or the Beard? Who is the MVP?
So, hi, I'm Oisin Brown. This is the Eurostep. This week I'm joined by Killian Loftus.
Yeah.
And Alex Evans.
I'm back.
Speaking of which, welcome back, Alex.
Thanks.
How was, where were you? Austria?
Better than this SH. Whoa, okay, let's
Oh,
go.
whoa.
Whoa, it's
Straight beefing.
Oh.
And,
yeah,
you know,
it's not really. It rains too much here.
and someone else was chatting a bit of beef. Hassan Whiteside.
Mr. Whiteside.
Apparently
Sitting courtside.
he's
I know that one myself.
Shush now. Shush.
So apparently he's unhappy with the rotation in Miami. He reckons he should be on getting more minutes and get more minutes down the stretch. Alex, thoughts?
Yeah, Whiteside came out after the 1 point loss to the Nets in overtime and said it's BS, man. But you've got to take it with a grain of salt. I think it's a frustration loss. The Heat always seem to play down to competition on smaller teams. And they've lost twice now, a big blowout and a 1 point loss to the Nets in their last two games. He was fined for comments detrimental to the team. But what really I think put him over the edge in what he said was the last part of his quote, which was plenty of teams out there could use a centre, talking about himself in the third person. But you've got to take it again as the Heat were the one team who gave this centre his chance. He was playing in Lebanon, playing in Israel. He was cut by the Kings. He was on D-League teams. And then it was the Heat that gave him his chance, who took him over Dwayne Wade at the time, gave him max money, and then left money to try and go after Kevin Durant, and then which ends up leaving Dwayne Wade out for nothing. So again, it's just a frustration. But Coach Spo came out and said it's behind us. And I only think this is going to push him on and give him something to play for. And he's going to play harder and play more coming into the playoffs and these last few games.
You call it frustration. I call it a big ego. He's a lot better than he thinks he is. Or he thinks he's a lot better than he really is.
Oh, that was going so well. I'll call it frustration.
He was benched towards the end of the game. The main reason, towards the end of the game, you need buckets. You can't rely on your defense. You can't rely on the other team to not score. You need to get buckets. And Hassan Whiteside only features in 2 of the Heat's 10 best offensive lineups, showing that maybe they're more efficient, more effective on offense when he's not there. And even statistically...
But it's a game at two ends. It's not just an offensive game.
Don't get me started on his defense. Don't get me started. Statistically, the Heat are a lot better when Hassan Whiteside isn't on the court. Like I said, I have it written down here. Take it with a grain of salt. Stats are sometimes don't tell the full story. Specifically, box scores. They don't tell the true value of a player. So take that however you want. But statistically, they are worse when he's not on the court. And maybe Eric Spoelstra's realising that the Heat can do better when he's not on the court. Maybe he's a bit of a liability on them offensively and maybe even defensively.
Yeah, obviously when we see Whiteside play, he can be brilliant at times, and other times, he leaves you, I suppose, if you're a Heat fan, you're probably frustrated watching him at times because sometimes he just doesn't perform to the level that he should be. And it kind of begs the question, what can you do to get him to play to his potential? Because we know that he can play brilliant basketball, but he just doesn't show it often enough.
Yeah, his lack of effort can be so frustrating, and just from a fan point's perspective, you can only imagine what the coach is thinking in situations like that. When you have a young guy in Bam Adebayo who comes into the game when Whiteside comes out, and who gives the 110% every game up and down the court, and he's had them crazy highlights catching lobs and throwing down major posters, which has earned him more minutes and obviously taken away from Whiteside. But Whiteside was injured recently and the Heat slid without him, and he came back and they're playing better basketball again. Everyone was begging for him to come back when he was injured, and him and Wade injured. Wade came back, not much difference. Whiteside comes back and they're playing better. It's when you watch them play, they're a better team with Whiteside out there. Stats don't tell the thing again, especially with a team like the Heat, where so many games come down to 1 or 2 points, and then all of a sudden you could have a game where they get blown out by the Nets or the Lakers out of nowhere, as we've seen time and time again.
That's just what happens when you're the Miami Heat. But anyway, I think maybe not this year, next year, even the year after, but down the line they have to look at getting rid of Hassan Whiteside while he still has some value to him, and just handing the centre role over to Bam Adebayo, who's shown a lot of potential in just his first year in the NBA and limited minutes as well. I think they need to, whether they can't do it this year, whether it's next year or the year after, they need to give Bam Adebayo the minutes he needs to become the player he can, rather than just giving minutes to Whiteside, who's aging towards the wrong side of 30.
But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Whiteside comes out and proves everyone wrong over these last few games and into the playoffs. He's the type of guy, especially with that Heat culture, everyone kind of looking down on him for things he said. Coach Spo said it's behind us, and when Coach Spo comes out with something like that, you believe him. You always believe him. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and just plays his heart out and leaves it all on the floor to show people his true worth to a team.
If Miami decides to trade him, what do you think his trade value is?
Not much. It'd be maybe a few role players, a first round pick towards the end of the draft. You're not going to be getting a good young star for him, or a good first round pick. It's be a few role players, maybe a second round pick or two will be in there somewhere. There's not much you can give up for a guy like Whiteside.
Yeah, I completely disagree with that. Every team would love a guy like Whiteside, whether they say it or they don't say it. When they give 110%, you see teams like the Pistons with Andre Drummond, you have the Heat with Whiteside, so many DeAndre Jordan, Clint Capella. There's all these tall, athletic centers that they play defense, get blocks, get rebounds, and slam the ball. That's about it. Some of their games might extend out to a bit of post action, but that's all. And every single one of them is getting 20 plus million. Why? Because they're in demand.
Yeah, but what would you
obvious.
What would you give up
so
for
many
him,
teams
though?
out there. You look at Tristan Thompson, and people slate Tristan Thompson the whole time. Why is he on so much money? Players like that are in demand. Every team wants one.
Tristan Thompson's on that much money because LeBron demanded he got paid after a good playoff series or two. It's the same with Bismack Biyombo. He had a good playoff series against the Cavs 2 years ago, I think. He got paid.
Because everyone wants a centre like that. That's your ideal centre to build around.
He had in his career. Like, he hasn't done anything since then. He didn't do anything before then.
That proves my point. He showed he had potential to get rebounds, block shots, so he got paid by the Orlando Magic.
Still
got
don't have
paid.
much value. The Celtics need a guy like that, but they're not going to give up on their good young players like Jason Tatum.
Well, the Celtics are a different situation. They
need a guy like that.
Top tier. Yeah, they need a guy like that. Every team needs
Still
a guy
not going
like that.
after one. You're still not going to give up one of your young stars for just a good centre.
But
Not
like,
even a top 10.
Some teams
nowadays, so many teams like the Rockets, you want a ball handler, 3 sharpshooters, and a big guy that's going to run up and down, get your rebounds and your blocks. That's almost a perfect lineup nowadays. Even with the Warriors don't have that kind of big guy like that, but they have Draymond Green, which is kind of their equivalent, and they're trying to form Kevin Durant into some of that as well. You've seen he's up there in the blocks this year, playing minutes at the 5, and Draymond Green. So every team wants that, or is trying to mould something into that.
I think we've seen a lot of, centers. I think that's probably the weakest position in the NBA at the moment. There isn't a lot of quality there. So if Hassan Whiteside performs, there's no reason why a big team wouldn't try and go after him, or a team that wants to become a big team would try and go after him. I can't see why. I mean, if you look at the Golden State Warriors, I'm not saying they'd go for Hassan Whiteside, but they play Zaza Pachulia at the 5. They're supposed to be the best team of all time. They play Zaza Pachulia at the 5.
Or JaVale McGee.
JaVale McGee.
They went 10-0 when JaVale McGee started.
It was like when you have 4 Hall of Famers at the other positions, it doesn't matter who your centre is.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, even some of the best teams in the league have weakness at number 5. So why can't Whiteside maybe, if there's good teams out there, there's no reason why they mightn't give up some of their other good role players to get Whiteside.
Exactly what I said. All you're going to get is role players for Hassan Whiteside. You're not going to get anything of significant value.
Yeah, but if you get a good few role players, you can rebuild the team, or maybe you might get a good draft pick. You don't know. I mean, I don't see why a team would give up nothing for Whiteside. I mean, we see a lot of teams, they trade for potential. They don't trade for the real deal straight away. A lot of teams, that's what they're doing now. We've seen there's almost almost half the league are in rebuild mode, and then there's a few teams that they're kind of finishing the rebuild. Now they want just that one piece who's already made. I think Whiteside is probably more towards that side, the piece that's already made. I mean, all he has to do is just play a little bit more consistently. The skill is there. So just say, as an example, the Phoenix Suns, right? They've a good young team, but they've Alex Len at the
5, yeah.
5,
Soon to be DeAndre Ayton.
Could be DeAndre Ayton.
Alex Len's a good player though. Like, don't sleep on Alex Len. He's a decent center.
He's
not a starting center, but he's decent.
I mean,
don't sleep on Alex Len. Write it down somewhere. Don't sleep on Alex Len.
There are plenty of teams with room for a good centre, is all I'm saying. And don't be surprised if Whiteside is the man they go after, especially if it sounds as if he's unhappy.
But Suns, what would they give up for Whiteside?
I'm not saying necessarily the Suns, but
the only thing is, you're saying the one thing they're not going to trade Whiteside for is role players. If there's one thing the Heat have too many or enough of, it's role players. There's so many players that just played their one role so perfectly, so many good bench players. They've started, I don't know how many lineups throughout the year, from just watching them. From night to night, it's different guys starting or different guys in the rotation. Sometimes you'd have a guy like Rodney Magruder playing 15 minutes, and then the next night he's not playing at all. It's all on-off. The last thing is they need is role players. They need a star to complement all their role players. So if they're going to get something for Whiteside, it's going to be go young.
I suppose, the Heat are kind of stuck in mediocrity right now, and maybe a good young, I suppose a pick probably would be the best way to get that good young player. I mean, obviously we've seen Bam Adebayo. A lot of people weren't so sure when they did draft him if he was, the right man, I suppose. Choice. But I think he's proven himself, and if he can continue that sort of form, and build on what he's done this season, he could be, a scary prospect in a couple of years' time. But anyway, moving on. Houston Rockets on Sunday as evening in our time, they had their asses handed to them by the San Antonio Spurs.
Nice way to put it.
Step one of being a Spur: block James Harden.
Sounds about right. So Killian, I'll start with you. What's your instant reaction to firstly that game and how it might affect the Houston Rockets going into the postseason?
It's not that surprising. If you were surprised by the Spurs whopping one of the best teams in the NBA, do you know who San Antonio are?
Have you heard of Coach Popovich?
They may not have their superstar kind of face of the franchise, but they're still an incredible team with Greg Popovich leading the way. They beat the Rockets 100-83, and one of the interesting thing is the Rockets are on track to play the Spurs in the second round if everything unfolds the way you kind of expect it to. That might change. The Thunder are the 5th seed, and it wouldn't be outrageous to say they could beat the Spurs in a playoff series. But it's be interesting, and it's not that shocking. Spurs have beaten the Rockets in the past, and they're just an incredible team. They have young guys, and they have everything. They're an incredible coach, young guys, good role players, and even a kind of all-star player in LaMarcus Aldridge.
And you got to mention James Harden, even last year against the San Antonio Spurs, who again got his ass handed to him by Kawhi Leonard and Emmanuel Ginobili with the notorious block. And as well as that, speaking of choking in the playoffs, when it comes to the Rockets, you've got Chris Paul, who it's fair to say a lot of people have him in their top 10 point guards of all times. True point guards. He's never made it past the second round in his career.
I don't think that's necessarily his fault, though.
As a Rocket, a Clipper, or in New Orleans,
Hornet.
a Hornet or whatever. And Mike Antony, because he doesn't play D, so I'm going to start calling Mike Antony from now on.
Okay.
No.
I'm pretty sure they're one of the top 5 defensive teams in the NBA,
That's
but sure.
Before Houston, he was Mike Antony. Now it's Mike D'Antoni again.
True.
Well, Chris Paul. Anyways, he has never gotten to the finals as well. He's lost in the conference finals twice, the conference semis twice, the first round 3 times, with some of the greatest players like MVP Nash and a great Suns team who were the 1 seed, prime Carmelo Anthony, who couldn't make it past the first round with, or Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, Steve Nash and Dwight Howard couldn't make it past the first round with either. So don't bank on him doing anything special with the Rockets.
It's just the Rockets. They really got can't say that word. They got destroyed by the Spurs. Deontay Murray, I'd like to say, he played brilliant. 13 points, 6 rebounds doesn't jump out at you, but he had 8 of those points in the first quarter, which is, don't have to say, brilliant. But one of the main assets of Deontay Murray is he is a hound on defense. He's absolutely amazing on that side of the floor.
He's a hound.
Hounding Chris Paul, James Harden all night long. Defensively, he's on the level of like one of the best point guards in the NBA, Terry Rozier III.
But going forward, are there maybe problems in the Houston Rockets that we might be refusing to acknowledge?
Yes. You can start, Alex.
The Houston Rockets, who are now 62-15, who have locked up the 1 seed pretty much. They're 5 or 6 games now, 6 games ahead of the Warriors. Vegas now has them tied with Golden State to win the championship. But just because they've done it in the regular season doesn't mean they're going to do it in the postseason. When every team comes to play and every team cranks it up another notch, it doesn't look like there's that extra gear there for Houston at the minute. They're great at getting you on a back-to-back against a team in Atlanta and putting up 130 points. They're great at doing that, don't get me wrong. But when they come up against a depleted Spurs team fighting for playoff position down the stretch, they get whooped. When the Spurs need a win, 17-point victory. So again, when it comes to the postseason and everyone brings their A game, the Rockets and the players and the coach on the Rockets who aren't known for that especially, can they do it? Can they hang with the big boys in the biggest of scenes?
I've just never understood why people think the Rockets can beat the Warriors, specifically this year. Sure, they have Chris Paul, but what much else do they have? The Warriors just have so much more firepower. They're so much better on both sides of the court. Well,
it's not what the Warriors have, it's what they might not have. It's the only reason. With Curry's injuries and their injuries,
I wrote that down
Thompson.
here. If the Rockets beat the Warriors, injuries will be the only reason why. If there's no injuries or anything, Rockets don't stand a chance.
If there's no injuries, no other implications or anything.
Suspensions.
Said it before, say it again. Warriors in 5.
I think that's fair enough. I feel like if once playoff time comes and the Warriors come back fit, I feel like their injuries could be a blessing. They haven't gone all out trying to get the 1 seed. They're the players who've been injured because they've missed games, they're going to come in fresh to the playoffs. And let's be real, regardless of who the Warriors play in the first round, even if they're missing Steph Curry, they're going to get through. This is the Warriors we're talking about. Now, it could go to 6 games maybe, but they're still going to get there. They're still going to get to the conference finals. And when you come up against, regardless of who they're against, you'd still fancy the Warriors with a fully fit team to take anyone in the league. No matter how good the Rockets are at scoring. I know their defense is pretty good as well because, you have Chris Paul. But, it's... No matter how well the Rockets do, it's hard to see how they could beat a fully fit, fully available Warriors team.
I never understood that either, so I decided to Google it. I googled why the Houston Rockets will beat the Golden State Warriors. These are the main reasons why. There's interior dominance, which is fair enough. They have Clint Capella, but don't act like the Warriors don't have Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, who's become a pretty good shot blocker this year.
And Zaza could just injure him either.
Don't sleep on JaVale McGee. He's a pretty good shot blocker, even if he is going towards the tail end of his career.
2-time Shaq and MVP.
Another reason, depth means nothing in the playoffs. Teams play 7 players a game, so the depth that Rockets have doesn't
When you're
mean
the Golden
much.
State Warriors, you play 7 players, and 7 of them players, or 4 of them players, are Hall of Famers.
Hall of Famers.
Then the rest of your depth means nothing.
So
And a Finals MVP.
In Andre Iguodala.
I mean, that's it's scary.
And you've guys that have been there before and done it before, in Sean Livingston as well.
Young guys, Jordan Bell,
David West, who's
Quinn
been there
Cook.
before.
effort.
Quinn
Quinn Cook's
Cook
been
is-
on fire
he's been-
towards the end of the year.
Don't sleep on Quinn Cook.
You said the Rockets have depth. I said that means nothing in the playoffs, but don't act like the Warriors aren't a relatively deep team as well. Some we forgot. Swaggy P, he can make some shots for you down the stretch. Something else, the Rockets can defend in the clutch. Is very specific. I think you're kind of grasping for reasons there. To be honest, I don't think that's much for
They
reason.
can defend in the clutch, but if you've James Harden on the floor with 5 other sharpshooters, 4 of them being Hall of Famers, which one are you going to put James Harden on?
Another reason, the Rockets can blow out teams in a quarter. The Warriors can blow out teams in a minute. It's not. We saw it, I think, last night, 2 days ago. They destroyed a 10-point lead in less than a minute, which is outrageous. Next reason, CP3 and James Harden are more motivated this year. That doesn't mean much. CP3's been motivated his whole life, still hasn't gotten past the second round. Doesn't make much of a difference this year. And last reason, the Warriors are turnover prone. A lot of that's just they're not trying this year. If they wanted the first seed, they would have gotten it, but they don't care.
Like when they wanted to try in the regular season and they won 73 games. Let's
Exactly.
not forget that. And then they added Kevin Durant. So
They stopped trying, still won like 67 games. Now they've had a lot of injuries this year.
went
Have
16
tried even
and went
less.
16 and 1 in the playoffs.
Exactly. Like, I don't see how. These are just not very good
Until
reasons for
we are
me.
proven otherwise, the Rockets ain't jack.
The only valid reason is interior dominance, but it's not that much. Clint Capella's a good player, but he's not like
It'll be a
Boogie
fun
Cousins
series,
or someone like that.
don't get me wrong.
It'll be a fun series
To
but
watch.
5 games max.
Seeing James Harden put up a 40-point triple-double in a losing effort will be fun, but not the results.
Be
the
like
Rockets
LeBron in
need.
2015 against the Spurs. Put
Like
up
LeBron
crazy
James
stats,
just about every year.
getting destroyed by the Spurs.
Like LeBron every year.
Can we just take a minute and, just acknowledge that the NBA community are sleeping on the greatest team of all time?
It's crazy.
Sleeping on the
a lot of
greatest-
people don't consider them the greatest team of all time. They say 96 Bulls, and then they say LeBron had more help than Jordan. I'm just like,
Yeah, when they say
Oop.
Jordan is better than LeBron because he had more rings, so then Robert Horry is better than Michael Jordan.
that's another discussion. That's a
Yeah,
discussion for another time.
Obviously we've touched on the playoffs, and there's every team has roughly 6 games left to play, 5-6 games.
Roughly.
So we kind of did a bit of a playoff preview about 10 games back, and
Got completely destroyed by now. Not gonna lie.
Come on,
It's like your March Madness bracket.
I had the Timberwolves third.
I had Pelicans 4th. Don't worry, bro.
Okay, so firstly, I suppose we'll start with the Eastern Conference, because there's I don't think we can mess up too much there, because we already know the 8 teams who are going to go through. It's just a matter of a couple teams fighting for places.
It's just the
Placings.
bottom 3 is really. I don't see Indiana overtaking Philly, though I believe they're only 1 game behind. I still don't really see it happening. It's just the bottom 3 seeds of Washington, Miami, and Milwaukee in that order is really going to kind of shake it up, and those are the 3 that will change the most. Though we can't sleep on Boston. They have a legitimate shot at the 1 seed. They're only 2 games behind Toronto, and they're playing them again, I believe. They beat them last time, a few days ago. It's not outrageous to say they'll beat them again and maybe get another game, steal the 1 seed. It's not a crazy thing.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility, I'll give you that much, but
I don't see it happening. Not gonna lie.
This was a fit Boston team. I mean, firstly, they'd probably still be top seed, or they would have gotten it back somehow by now. But
We'd be on 60 games by now if we were fully fit. Just throwing
well,
it out there.
even minus Hayward, and just the team that you've had for most of the season. But
Edging 50, 60.
yeah, I mean, Boston Boston are maybe a little bit unlucky to not have the top seed. I feel like Toronto could have been better served having the second seed, because I feel like a lot of the NBA community are like just so, I suppose, big-headed about Toronto's chances, or at least their own fans. I feel like if they were coming in second seed, they've a little bit less pressure on themselves, and going into the playoffs, they might have served them a bit better.
I'm not sold on Toronto the same way I'm not sold on the Rockets. They have to kind of prove themselves to me in the playoffs before I'll say, yeah, they have a legitimate shot at making the finals. But for now, no. It's still LeBron James. Maybe he can be slowed down a bit.
Conference.
Maybe he can be slowed down a bit by Boston, Toronto, maybe Philly. But other than that, it's LeBron James. Toronto have to show that they can play in the playoffs. They haven't done it at all.
LeBron is going to walk through the Eastern Conference, more than likely averaging a triple-double in the playoffs. Put it in writing.
I'll write it down. Give me the pen.
I'll write it down. LBJ trip dub. Watch it happen.
Nice.
He's going to show up and he's going to put that team on his back and get them to the finals. He hasn't missed a game all season, and he brings it every night. It's LeBron James. Like, again, we're saying with Houston and Toronto that, they haven't shown it. LeBron James is the same, but completely opposite. Until we're shown he can be slowed down, then I'm not going to bet against him at all.
I mean, watching LeBron in the regular season, I know, some people are saying statistically he isn't much better than Kobe in his 15th season. But if you watch the way LeBron dominates, he makes the rest of the players on the court almost look like, college players or G League players in comparison to him. He's on a whole nother level.
He makes it look so effortless. You'd be watching him, you're like, okay, LeBron's had a nice few touches, and you look at the box score and he has 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists.
Yeah, but then again, we didn't really get to watch Kobe play in his 15th year, so it's a bit of a thing there.
It's hard to compare as well, because Kobe and LeBron are such different players. The way LeBron dominates from every corner of the floor is on another level. Yes, he slowed down defensively
a lot
during the regular season. Let's not forget, one of LeBron's best play of all time is a defensive block. So when he wants to pick it up, he will. Just like his offensive play, his defensive play will improve. As long as that, they have a very dodgy coach who doesn't know how to play defense, as well as so many different players that need to get used to the way they play defense and offense.
So I suppose we're kind of still stating the obvious. Cleveland Cavaliers, despite being in the third seed, they're going to get to the finals.
Even if they fall to the fourth seed. Philadelphia are playing well. They are streaking. They look like they could take the 3 seed.
I'll take Philly over
Cleveland. I think
round.
Cleveland looking at it right now would probably rather go up against Indiana than Washington, especially now that John Wall is back and the Wizards look like they're playing well.
Yeah,
I don't really think it bothers the Cavs.
I think, like you said, they still rather go up against Indiana. They're a very young team led by Victor Oladipo, who has been amazing this year. But aside from that, their best players are the likes of Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner.
They're a young, inexperienced
They're a young team. They'll be very fun to watch in the playoffs, but I don't see them doing too much because the lack of experience. Same said for Philly, really.
Right, so...
But quickly, before we move on to the Western Conference, looking at the Eastern Conference there, every single team has something that they can bring that I think can win them a playoff series. Start at the top. Toronto, you know what they've got. They have DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. They've brought in the regular season. They can show what they can do in the playoffs. Boston with Kyrie Irving,
best coach in the East.
Dwayne Casey is a good coach too.
Facts.
You know what Boston are going to bring as well. Cleveland, they've got LeBron James, of course. Philadelphia, they're a young, exciting team. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid have been beasts all year. And Markelle Fultz might bring that something, another flair.
A little bit off the bench.
Surrounded by all them shooters they have. Philadelphia. Indiana, as we said, they're a young team with all these young guys. They're going to come in, give it 100%.
I know we talk about inexperience, but a young team is going to bring extra speed because they aren't slowed down.
They're going to want it more.
It'll be fun to watch.
And teams like Philadelphia and Indiana have absolutely nothing to lose. Teams like Cleveland, if they get bounced in the first round, that's not a good look.
I mean,
it's
any
not good.
chance LeBron staying is just gone if Cleveland go first round.
With Philadelphia and Indiana, they make the conference finals. All good. If they get knocked out, even if they get swept, and they show some potential, they've learned something.
It's a good bit of experience.
The Wizards, you know what they've got as well, but
John Wall,
they
Bradley
have
Beal.
that kind of case of Rockets, Toronto. They've got to bring it. They've been hanging around, and John Wall and Bradley Beal, you got to say, go out there and show us something. Why we need to believe in you.
Especially now that Bradley Beal is actually an all-star. I know.
Yeah.
He was borderline.
We've been
last few
calling
years.
it for years, and now he's actually an all-star. I feel like now he has to prove himself a bit more now.
Last two
Miami.
teams, the Miami Heat, you know what they can bring when they really play their heart out. They've beaten a lot of the top teams in the last 2 years.
And the Miami Heat are going they're almost unstoppable in the American Airlines Arena right now. They're playing so well at home. It's not a nice place to go.
No, not at all. When you stand there and you feel the flames come up, you know you're in trouble. And Boston know that. At the minute, it's looking like they're going to be playing Boston. And Boston know that when they went in there on that streak. And then they came out there with no streak.
Yeah, but
You know what they can bring. And they've got Dwayne Wade back. Who
And
aside from LeBron James, has the most playoff experience out of everyone else in the Eastern Conference at the top level. And finally, the Milwaukee Bucks. You know what Milwaukee can bring. Like Philadelphia and Indiana. Not much to lose. Young team. But they've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jabari Parker, young, athletic, and they're going to run.
Milwaukee, Toronto as well. That'll possibly be the first round matchup, and Milwaukee
Like we
always
saw
do
last
good
year.
against Toronto.
That's what we saw
They
last
can
year.
always beat Toronto.
And with Jabari Parker, he's been
Better. A
He's
lot
been-
better since he came back.
Yeah.
That big game last year.
The fact that he's only played he'll have finished the season with about 20 games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
roughly.
He's
But
fresh.
he looks ready. He looks
He's fresh.
ready to go.
And he is averaging less points than last season. But come playoffs, they need someone to step up. Eric Bledsoe
And they
as
have
well.
Eric Bledsoe.
I feel like we've forgotten him as well. I think
surprised.
every matchup in the East looks exciting, and we can't say that for the West. Even though I know we don't know we're a lot less sure about the Western Conference playoffs, and we'll move on to that now in a sec. But the Eastern Conference, it's just they're so, I suppose, evenly matched. A lot of them.
Coming out of last season, people were almost ready to give up on the parity NBA. We're saying, it's whatever, Warriors are going to run away with
I'm
it.
not watching the NBA anymore. It's
but
dead.
this Golden a lot of people still think Golden State are going to win. But everything else aside from that, I know the last couple of years, the Eastern Conference playoffs, they've had just the last 3 teams kind of been straggler teams. They haven't done anything. But
Been there for the fun.
like the Hawks and the Hornets.
It's
And
like, hey, we made the playoffs. Hi.
But now, looking at all 16 teams coming into playoffs, every single one of them teams have something. You can't look at that and say, well, this team is whatever. Like, every single team has the potential for an upset, a big win, a sweep, a game in 7 series. Every team is, and every series is going to be exciting to watch. Sorry for
Just
the phone.
before we move on to the Western Conference, Alex, just one thing. You did say we know what they're going to bring for every team in the East. So
Thought I was the only one who noticed that.
If you could,
Toronto, we know
maybe
what they're going to bring.
Killian, you go through the list for the Western Conference.
Toronto greatly improved. They've moved towards motion offense rather than the ISO ball they played in recent years. Boston, best coach in the East, whether you think that's true or not, Alex. They have the best coach in the East. They have all-star guys, Kyrie Irving, Al Horford, amazing young role players, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Incredible team, especially defensively.
Move
Bring a lot to
on.
the table.
Move on.
Cleveland Cavs, LeBron James, enough said. Philadelphia, best young duo in the NBA, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, surrounded by shooters, Saric, Redick, Covington, and Markel Fultz, bit of a spark off the bench. Indiana, young team, but they've shown a lot of heart, and they're a very good team. Victor Oladipo, Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, those kind of guys. Be very interesting to watch. Washington, they need to kind of prove themselves this year. They haven't really brought it in the playoffs the last few years. They have John Wall, they have Bradley Beal, even guys like Kelly Oubre is a brilliant role player. They have a lot to bring, and here's hoping they'll bring it.
Gotta bring it.
Miami, all-star point guard, I suppose, kinda, but not really.
Okay, come on. Let's do the bias here. Right? Come on.
They have some decent role players and not a top 10 center. Milwaukee,
Anyway, let's go.
they have Giannis. He's a monster. Like, enough said. Jabari Parker, as you mentioned. Even Malcolm Brogdon, rookie of the year last year, as much as I hate to say it. And even Thon Maker, he's a bit of a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get out of him.
He played well in the playoffs last year.
He did. He was a beast.
As a rook.
Moving on to the Western Conference. We know the Rockets sit atop the Western Conference. It's looking like they'll get the 1 seed. Warriors don't care. We know that. Blazers number 3. They have Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum.
Inspired Damian Lillard.
And
Daddy
a
Dame.
very good team. No.
Daddy Dame.
Don't say that.
He called himself that.
Oh, Lord. Number 4, you have San Antonio, we mentioned earlier. Brilliant team. They are missing Kawhi Leonard, but they've been brilliant all year. Best coach in the NBA. I think we can agree on that, Alex.
I think, there's no reason, we could still see Kawhi in the playoffs.
No. Kawhi has played his last game in a Spurs uniform.
Hot take. We'll move on to that.
Jalen Rose will agree
We'll talk. We might talk Kawhi the next episode. We'll go back to the list.
Let's go.
Leave a like if you want to hear more about Kawhi.
If there's anyone watching,
if
doubt
you made
it.
it this far.
Anyway.
OKC Thunder, Westbrook George, Paul,
Mello.
Steven Adams, Carmelo Anthony. We know he hasn't been himself this year, but he's still Carmelo Anthony. The Utah Jazz, led by young Donovan Mitchell. It'd be exciting to see what he can do in the playoffs.
Rudy Gobert.
They've Rudy Gobert, possible defensive player of the year. Then even Ricky Rubio, he's been very good this year.
Joe Ingles.
Joe Ingles, best 3-point shooter in the NBA statistically. But the Minnesota Timberwolves at number 7. They have some very good young team led by Jimmy Butler.
Once he gets back from injury, they're going to be good.
He should be back for the playoffs.
He's been playing 5-on-5 drills yesterday. Apparently, he'll be back for before the playoffs, so you could see him again in the regular season.
Especially when they're the 7th seed and they're looking at playing the Warriors. The Steph Curry-less Warriors in the first round could be a good matchup. With the Wolves maybe exploiting some of the Warriors' weak points.
Their centre position, we know Towns is a beast on offense. Shaky on defense, but they have Andrew Wiggins. We've slewed him a lot in the past, but he's a good player. He can put the ball in the basket.
He's a good role player.
They have Jeff Teague as well. He was an all-star a few years ago. He's not that same player, but he can still put the ball in the basket. He can still shoot the ball. He can still run the point.
Taj Gibson, Jamal Crawford, both experienced players.
Give you some buckets off the bench, or Taj Gibson might start.
Tom
I'm not too
Thibodeau
sure.
knows how to coach in the playoffs.
He does, because he knows how to coach in the playoffs. Just run the legs off your players.
He's going to play 6 players a game. Play them 40 minutes.
And the 8th seed, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. They're missing Boogie Cousins, but they still have the monster in Anthony Davis. If they meet the Rockets first round,
he's going to play his heart out.
He's gonna scare the Rockets. They even have guys, Drew Holiday. He's
Rondo.
Overpaid, but he's a good player. Rajon Rondo's been showing a lot of flashes of greatness this year. Showing him his old self this year. They're a good team. Well, they're an okay team, but they have Anthony Davis. And when you have a guy like that, you have a chance to win any playoff season.
Do we think that Denver, maybe not LA, but I think Denver might be more exciting team to watch in the playoffs than New Orleans? Obviously, that last couple of positions are still up for grabs. But Denver with the backcourt of Jamal Murray and Gary Harris, and then Nikola Jokic as well. There's so many guys like that. I feel like the Nuggets might be more exciting to watch, especially when they're going to give it everything. And Gary Harris and Jamal Murray, they believe that they're one of the better backcourts in the NBA. They said that they can take on any backcourt in the NBA, and no other way for them to prove it than going up against Chris Paul and James Harden in the first round. So that's perfect time to try and back up what they said and try and take a few games off Houston.
It sounds outrageous, but to be fair, thinking of it, they are one of the better backcourts. They're not on the level of, like you mentioned, Chris Paul, James Harden.
Underrated because they're in Denver.
Steph, Clay, you have CJ, Dame. They're not on that level, but they are a very good backcourt. I'd love to see them match up. I would rather see Denver in the playoffs than the Pelicans. Like you mentioned, they have Jamal Murray, they have Gary Harris, two very exciting young guards. And the Joker, Nikola Jokic, a lot of people don't view him. They don't respect his game. He's an absolutely incredible centre. And I want everyone to see that this year.
And it'll educate people about why Clint Capella's not that good when Nikola Jokic absolutely destroys him in the playoffs.
Yes, just sir. Briefly, it's unlikely, but the LA Clippers can still get in.
It's still possible.
I feel like it would be, you know, probably the worst thing that could happen to the playoffs, because
who doesn't want to see Sweet Lou go off in the playoffs?
Sweet Lou could go off at the playoffs and they'll still get whooped by 30.
I'd rather see Nikola Jokic drop some monster triple doubles.
That's true, but if anyone deserve it, it's Sweet Lou.
Like Lou, I love watching Lou Williams play. I mean, the Clippers, you know, they can pull something up out of nowhere every now and then, but I just feel like going into the playoffs, they will get swept.
Yeah, to be fair. Like, Denver could steal a game from Houston, Golden State.
They could take. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver took 2 from the Rockets.
Take at least one. Even New Orleans could take a game from
even
the
looking
Rockets.
at the whole playoffs, the only teams that you could kind of bank on being swept, maybe the Wizards, because obviously the LeBron James going up against them.
If they play the Celtics, though, they could easily take a game, maybe 2, against an injured Celtics team.
But despite that, if the Rockets end up playing New Orleans, Anthony Davis more than likely will take at least a game off of Houston. But everything else, it's up for grabs. Even the Warriors, if they're without Steph Curry, they're not going to be beaten in a game in 7 series. But
the sweep's possible.
In a game, they can be beaten a few gentleman sweeps on the board, but that's about it.
If Towns goes off, he could steal a game against the Warriors. Jimmy Butler might have another good game. That could be another close one. Warriors, Wolves, it's possible sweep, not looking likely.
Everyone looks beatable. The sweeps are a lot of sweeps we saw last year throughout the playoffs. This year, it's not looking so likely.
The Blazers, Jazz, maybe sweep. It's hard.
No.
Probably not. But
I with Rudy Gobert back in the setup,
Yeah.
I don't see Jazz getting swept by the Blazers.
I'm just thinking maybe inexperience. Like, they are led by a rookie, so it might be tough for them to maybe win playoff games. But I'm not banking on a sweep. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
We saw the Jazz play well last year against the Warriors. There's no reason they can't do it again this year.
You don't have
against
Gordon
the
Hayward.
Blazers.
If by some miracle Steph Curry is back for the first round and they matched up against the OKC Thunder,
It'd be some series.
I don't think OKC. I wouldn't be surprised if they got swept. I just think Russell Westbrook will take too much of the ball, and you know he does, like, he's a brilliant player and you look at his box score and stuff, but he just, you know, he pushes himself too hard. He plays 110. He goes 100 miles an hour for the whole game, and I think that, you know, it's a big problem. So if they were to face up against the Warriors in the first round, even maybe without Steph Curry, they could, you know, that could be a real problem, and the Thunder would be a massive disappointment in the playoffs if that were to happen.
It's a possible sweep, but I think it'd be a good series because the storyline of it. Obviously, there's the whole Westbrook Durant thing, and Westbrook goes 110% against Durant. He does anyway. He goes 160% against Durant.
Westbrook would at least take
Westbrook
one
would
game
go off for a
Golden State.
50-point triple-double. Paul George would do his thing, and they'd steal a game, I think.
But
Durant would come back the next game and drop 50.
With Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors, fully healthy Golden State Warriors, I don't even know if there's a team that I can definitely say will go past 5 games against the Warriors. I'll just leave that there. Even we saw last year, the Cleveland Cavaliers with Kyrie Irving and LeBron James giving it everything.
I mean,
they could only get to 5.
Call me crazy or Celtics fanboy or whatever, but I think 6 games for Boston isn't outrageous. We've shown we can play the Warriors this year. We've shown we can beat the Warriors.
Yeah, and Dion Waiters.
Healthy Boston
Dion
team.
Waiters hit the game winner.
Healthy Boston team, excluding Gordon Hayward, would, I think, have a good chance to get to 5. Possibility of a 6-game series.
So you call me crazy when I say that he could beat Boston because we've shown it in the regular season.
That's the difference. Boston are a really good team. The Heat are mediocre.
The only team, there's 3 teams at the top of the NBA: Golden State, Houston, and Cleveland. That's it. Everyone else is below them. It's not on the same tier as them 3 teams. That's it.
I mean, we've beaten every single one of those teams.
In the regular season.
Still, we destroyed the Houston Rockets in the clutch. Don't forget Marcus Smart on the ground screaming when he got that charge on James Harden. We can beat the Rockets, we can beat the Warriors, and we can dismantle the Cavs. Maybe not this year. Next year, it's happening.
Yeah, leave it for next year's show. So this year,
60 plus game.
LeBron James isn't getting beat in the Eastern
60
Conference.
plus win regular
You
season
want to
next
put money
year.
on it? For this year.
This year.
For this year, you think Boston are going to beat Cleveland?
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
Next year, after a 60 plus win regular season, it's happening.
No.
You know, I'm
Stop
actually
it. Get some help.
we'll play a game. I'm gonna
I like games.
okay, this isn't like a Saw or anything, but we can chill out. But I was just thinking, with it being the magic of the horse racing Grand National season now.
Do you know who won the Grand National? Hey,
You won. I got fourth.
I got number 18, number 1.
I got a whole €6.40.
I'm getting like 50.
Oh man. Anyway, so I was thinking, right? So,
Do you know what my plane was called now back from Austria?
Oh,
Killian.
seriously?
Yeah. I was going to take a photo, but I couldn't get one because the thing was up. I saw it on one side. I was like, I'll just get on the other side. I was like, oh, nice.
It's the best day of my life.
Anyway,
Aer Lingus.
anyways, so
Yeah. Fun
Moving on.
fact of the day.
right, so so I was looking at putting on a bet for the playoffs.
You're underage.
It was an illegal bet.
Like my mum did my one for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point being. Anyway,
She was the one with the nice
right.
colours.
So so just I'll give you an exact. Right, my bet is it's it's a 3 put into 1. It's treble. Philly get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Nope.
That is a bold statement.
Nope.
If they get the 4 seed, it's a possibility. I'll give you that
They're
much.
in the 4 seed.
Yeah, but if they stay.
Cleveland to win the Eastern Conference,
Okay.
and Golden State to win the championship. It's not outrageous, but it's still there's something to discuss.
The Philly one's the bold one.
I'm just gonna hand you guys a room for thought to come up with something that's a bit of a hot take, but it's not impossible.
I'll let you go first. Boston to win the East. Boston to beat
No, we're not winning the
Rockets
East
in
this
4.
year. We're not winning the East this year. I'll give you that much. Cavs are winning the East, but Bucks upset the Raptors first round.
I like it.
Bucks upset the Raptors. Cavs win the East. Warriors beat the Spurs in the conference finals.
And Warriors win the championship. in
That goes
5.
without saying.
Alex?
4, maybe.
Like I really do want to say Heat over Boston because I do think it.
But you just
it
know it's
can
not
happen,
happening.
But I don't want to sound biased, so I'm not gonna. It was just kind of thrown on. I hate to think really. Hang on. Yeah. Wizards over Philly.
Ooh.
Philly get knocked out in the first round. And then, see, I'm not sure how the standings are go. Cleveland's out the East,
Yeah.
and then Warriors in the finals.
Who are they beating in the conference finals, though?
Who are they going to play if they're the 4 seed? They're going to play Toronto.
Yeah.
So Cleveland, Boston,
Conference finals.
conference finals.
I like it. So in the intro, I said we're going to discuss the MVP, LeBron or James Harden, but we're out of time. We'll leave that to next time.
Clickbait.
Damn. Alright, so that's about it. Check us out on social media. We're Team Eurostep on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you enjoy our content, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you'd like to help a brother out, we're Team Eurostep on Patreon. As little as €1 a month helps immensely. So until next time, it's goodbye from Killian, a goodbye from Alex.
See ya.
Congratulations to Supernova Villanova for winning the championship, NCAA March Madness championship.
And Notre Dame for winning the women's.
Yeah.
My guys, fighting Irish.
My guys. My.
Feminists, I hear them.
They're coming, run.
Run. And a goodbye from me on